Hi, welcome to Girlfriends of a Certain Age, a podcast for women in midlife. We are busy living our best lives. I'm your co host, Fleshay Hesh. I'm a business coach and work life balance expert for women.
And I'm your co host, Jessica Neighbor. I'm a voice coach for vocalists and public speakers online at Impact Vocal Coaching. We are girlfriends in real life, and in every episode, we'll discuss a different hot topic about becoming wise women, recovering from being a good girl, and not giving a bleep anymore.
If you identify as a girlfriend of any age and you want to join our conversation, join us on Instagram, YouTube, and girlfriendsofacertainage.com. I am your host, Fleshay.
And I am your host, Jessica.
And today I have the incredible honor of introducing you, our listener, to the amazing Jessica Neighbor. So, as a way to get our podcast off the ground, we thought you might be a little bit curious about who your hosts are leading you on this journey. And so today we will be hearing from Jessica Neighbor, who is a girlfriend, author, mother, and voice coach for performers and public speakers. She runs her own voice studio in the San Francisco Bay Area called Impact Vocal Coaching, where she helps singers and public speakers communicate their best. When she's not coaching, she loves being a mom to her two teenage sons, hiking in the nearby redwoods, and performing in her comedy improv group. She lives with her husband, two sons, and her 12 chickens in Oakland, California. Welcome, Jessica.
Hi, Blashay.
Oh, how fun is this? So, today I just want to give an opportunity for people to get to know you better, what's in your heart, who you are, where you come from, and what you're all about. So, can you tell us a little bit about where you are from originally?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am from the Bay Area originally, from Berkeley, California. So, like two whole towns over. Who knew that I would wind up settled back here just a couple cities away in Oakland? But I love it. Yeah, I grew up in Berkeley, born in the 70s in a very, rich historical time in Berkeley. My parents were artists and activists, so I grew up in that very like charged community, not really understanding what a unique place it was I came from, but I loved it, and I grew up really being drawn to performing. So I loved acting, I loved singing and dancing, and I did that from a very young age. I then continued to pursue that in college. So I auditioned and got into UCLA theater department. So I got to run around in tights on stage at UCLA for 4 years, and really enjoyed that training. And then had a little stint of being a performer slash waiter in LA. Going out on those auditions, it was a really, really interesting experience. But I learned quickly that the kind of like skills I had learned in, UCLA and in my academic setting weren't translating to like the practical world of being a performer. And I was a little like, how do you actually make a living doing this? And so I finally started talking with friends who were really doing that and meeting with agents and casting directors. And I started learning more about the practical side of things. And that then later on influenced my voice coaching and audition coaching for other young performers. So thank you, LA, for being a really rough place to start out, but for really actually influencing me later on in my career. So after I did LA for a time, I really was pulled back to the Bay Area. Like I'm just, something about the fog and the Bay just brought me back here. And I was also doing some musical theater at the time with some performer friends of mine. And then I really got into singing, and singing as an active vocalist in jazz and soul and cover bands, you name it. I was doing it all over the Bay Area. And I actually wound up injuring myself because I was singing so hard and so often. I wound up getting retrained with a voice coach and wonderful woman named Jane Sharp in here in the Bay Area. And she completely shifted the way I thought about voice coaching. Her approach was full body. Her approach was how does it feel, not how do you sound. It was very process oriented, not product oriented. And that then really, she was my mentor for becoming my own voice coach. So after a time of being my own singer, then I started working with vocalists. And so that's what I do right now in my vocal part of my coaching. I also do public speaking, but I work with young performers to really feel into their bodies and support themselves. And also from the LA experience, how to audition and be successful as a performer when you want to go out for high stake auditions, either in colleges or in professional productions. And then pandemic happened, career wise, and I went online and kind of built out my online coaching community. And I'd always worked with public speakers, but being online actually really cemented the need for online public speaking skills. So now I have some trainings about how we all who are online and in Zooms can communicate better and be our authentic selves and support our voices fully. So that's been like my work journey. And fun fact, when I was on vocal rest and before I started retraining with Jane Sharp, I had to be a normal person. A lot of us performer types who grew up pretty like into that lifestyle are not normal. We're like rehearsing all the time, so we don't like hang out. We don't like go on normal dates. And because I had to be on vocal rest for a year, I wound up dating. And luckily, I scored the jackpot and met my future husband, who's a fantastic guy who is from Oakland, California. Wound up moving in with him. We now have two beautiful boys who are in their early teens, who are like rocking our world. And together we have just like created this really awesome, fun family unit for ourselves. So yeah, I have to actually thank my weird injury for forcing me to slow down enough to then really meet someone meaningful in my life.
It's so interesting when those detours that feel like heartbreaks at the time end up being gifts.
Yeah.
And it takes some time to see it.
Yeah, I met my husband and I met my voice coach, who is the most inspiring for the work I do to this day.
That's
Thank you, Vocal
incredible.
Nodules, for doing that.
Ah, and I have to say, like you and I have known each other for a long time, and you have coached me around my public speaking. And I'm so grateful to you for that. So I can vouch for you being the real deal. So it's just so fun to see you in this context and be bringing this, to our audience and to everybody.
Well, and
So
to thank you real quickly, I know we talked about this a little bit in the previous episode where I got to interview you. Y'all should check it out because it's awesome to learn about Flochet. But you really helped me with my business, right? Because I came from that performance background and not a business background. And you bringing that business training to me really made me able to sustain my business, to grow it, to be able to raise my family while still being a performer and a coach, and even making it through the pandemic. I mean, so whew, you've taught me so much about really like, sustaining a business. So thank you.
you're welcome. And this is what girlfriends do,
Yeah.
right? We support each other. When I have a skill and you need it, I'm going to coach you on how to have the skill too, and vice versa. And that goes for the women as well in our community. Those of you who are listening, that we want to share that with you, which leads me into my next question, Jessica, which is, how do you feel about being a girlfriend of a certain age?
Ooh, it depends which day you're asking me about. Now, in general, I feel overwhelmingly positive about it. I will say that it's been a journey to get to this place. I feel like in the decade of my 40s, when in my early 40s, my body started shifting, and I really think those few years of perimenopause were really, really challenging for me. And I know we'll have some episodes where we do deep dives into that. But I think that where I sit now at age 48, really, I feel clear and grounded in myself. I feel like I know what I want and need more than I ever did in my life before. Or in a funny way, I feel like I did when I was that young girl, before puberty kicked in. I and actually that might be related to the fact that I've gone through menopause. So I'm done.
Mm.
I am done. My family, the ladies in my family do it really early. And so I now have this sense of self, um, that I feel like an 8-year-old had. Those proud girls, that really feel themselves. She's coming back, and I'm so happy to have her back in my life. So I really, really am enjoying this journey and this phase. Another thing that we will also do another deep dive about is my hair, and allowing myself to go gray. For me, was really a very like deliberate act of aging like out loud. I also just got burned out on going to the salon, and my hair was turning into straw, and it was so much money and so much time. So I kind of discovered these really cool online Facebook groups, and I can share all about that when we have our hair episode. But that journey of allowing the gray to kind of show through at first, like the skunk line, and then kind of like fully come out, and now I like to refer to it as my crown, I think really altered the way I look at being this age. So like,
Mhm.
I feel like before I went gray, and this totally is my own experience. This isn't everyone's experience, and no judgment on to dye or not to dye. Like, totally everyone do themselves. But before, I was always looking at the women around my age who I thought really did a good job of looking younger. Ooh, how did they do that? Ooh, their hair color's good. Oh, what's their skin regimen? Da 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 da. And now I find myself looking at all these gray-haired people and being like, oh, I love that silver. Oh, I can't wait for my hair to go pure white like that. I wonder if it will. So I just feel like it really altered my framework, about who is on my radar. And
Mm.
it feels good. It feels really good to be where I am right now.
What what are you hoping that our listeners will get from this podcast? Like this conversation, I mean, talking more about our hair and our relationships and our changing bodies. What are you hoping that our listeners will get?
Well, I mean, we get to have this wonderful work relationship. So you and I, Felicia, are constantly talking about these things. And I think we just really recognize that there is a need for this kind of talk out there. And, you and I went to look for community around these topics of aging and perimenopause and menopause and going gray and bloating and all the things. And we're just coming up against really negative messaging that made us both feel really funky. And I just remember there'd be days where like you or I would be fired up about it, just like I don't want to think of things that way. And so I think by us like really sharing what we've already been talking about and then opening it up to a bigger community, it's like, let's be real, but let's really like make a concerted effort to reframe the way we're, living the second half of our lives, because we have to feel that we have options and possibilities. And I think that we have to share that for each other. And I think when we just get stuck in that mindset, oh, I'm graying, oh, I'm aging, oh, it's all downhill from here, that really can bog us down. So my hope is that this podcast gives everyone hope, options, some a little levity from some girlfriends that are the real deal, and that we can like open this up so that we can all like really feel into our powerful selves, our full selves. That little 8-year-old girl that wasn't going to take crap from anybody. I want that for everyone.
Yeah. That reminds me of something Christiane Northrup in her book. I believe it's The Wisdom of Menopause. And she
Mm.
talks about how we change at puberty. And most, when you and I were young, because girls are menstruating a lot younger now than when you and
Wow.
I were coming of age,
Mm.
which is a whole other thing to talk about. She talks about how we change at puberty and we change to make ourselves more attractive to a potential partner or a mate, even in these early years of becoming a woman, as
Wow.
a relative said to me, I remember. And then how menopause, it becomes the gift of going back to who you really are. So when
Yeah.
I hear you talk about bringing the joy of your 8-year-old self, it's
Hmm.
like you're going back to you, the real you,
Yes.
you know? It
Yes.
makes me wonder about, like, how did you wear your hair when you were 8? What were you playing with? What were you into? What cartoons were you watching? Who did you want to be when you grew up?
Right.
Because now you are that grown up. And so now that's just chance to just bring it all full circle
Yeah.
and bring back that wonderment of being a child. It's still in you. It's
Yes.
still in you. And it really is in you. I see it. I see how you live and how playful you are with the men you live with.
Yeah.
But I feel like I hear you reclaiming you,
Yeah.
Jessica, the real
Absolutely.
Jessica.
Yeah. I want to get to know her more and more. I'm like, this is who I'm living with. So I want to get to know her more. And yet I feel like the only way I get to know her more is also by connecting with other people. Like, I don't want to be isolated. I want to be in community. And I do see, they have all those like happy scores in different countries. And it always seems to come down to, at least for one of the main things, is community, having good friends and having good connections. And so maybe because I feel like I can start to truly be my authentic self, in a way that, not that I was like someone else, but I was just so outward. And there's this way that I'm feeling more inward now. And I want to connect with people more on that level, that, really resonates on that different connection level. Yeah. And I was someone who was definitely a people pleaser. I think performers, we have that in us and we know how to do it. And so we're very, very quick to please. But it wears you out after a while. It really wears you out. And so you recognize that, actually pleasing yourself and listening to your own real voice is what is gonna feed you the most, rather than the accolades and the applause and the attention from other people. That if you're just basing your life on that alone, is a very lonely place.
Hmm.
So there's something, I think, that's very liberating about allowing that voice in, for sure.
Absolutely. There's
Yeah.
also something culturally quite subversive about a woman allowing herself that time and space, and let
Mm,
alone voicing what she found on the inside. You know,
yes.
our
Yes.
culture's not really set up for it.
Yeah, yeah. And I have a therapist. He is retired at a very early age. He played the stock market and he played it right, but he's a wonderful teacher. And he talks about how he actually sees this both in women and men, but how in midlife, a lot of us, because we're having to sort of slow down a little bit, there is an opportunity, if we're into it, to get more introspective. And he absolutely thinks that it's connected to that child self, the
Mm,
pre-pubescent self. And he thinks that it's true for both women and men. And that men probably have their own journey with what it means to be masculine and attract a mate, or, all these things. So he said that that's a theme that he sees in his work, quite often. And so I find that really interesting, that there's this like sort of full circle arc, and I'm like, awesome, I get to hang out with my 8-year-old for a while. Let's do this. Let's go play in the sandbox of life.
oh, yes. Yes. Why do we stuff away that child? We're told, oh, that's childish. Put that away.
Yeah.
It's time to grow up. It's time to get serious. But I think I'm quite convinced that that robs us of our own personal freedom and joy and pleasure.
Yes.
and knowing what makes us happy. We're told, oh, that's childish, that's the past, that's not who I am anymore. I have to push that away. So I better
Hmm.
be like everybody else. I better toe the line and be like everybody else. And I feel like women were, especially as young women and as girls, really trained, partly even by our peers.
Oh,
Fit
100%.
in, you don't fit in. Wrong jeans, wrong hair, wrong whatever. It's very interesting to come back to that and to realize how wrong they were.
Well, right, because when we're trying to fit in and trying to be like everyone else, we're not ourselves. We're not ourselves. And
Mm-mm.
then we feel disconnected from ourselves. And that's the most important thing, right? Like, I love to quote this. I quote this a lot, but with Michelle Obama in her book, Becoming, she talks about being on that hike with that group. Do you know that section? And she talks about being on her own journey and like seeing the people in front of her and maybe feeling this little ego poke to catch up with them, but then looking behind her and seeing the people trailing behind. And it's like we are all on our own journey. That's the only journey we actually are on. And yet, I do think women are trained to be on everyone else's journey. How are your kids? How's your partner? I'm going through a lot of sandwich caretaking right now with my elder parents. There's different parents, of course. Like my mom is rocking it, but then we have different relatives of different needs, and just being pulled in all these different directions. And I think it's very easy to feel like, oh, as you get like more depleted as life goes on, that's just gonna like wear you down if you're constantly living to serve. So
Mm.
I have to go inward in a way that before I thought was selfish. You were talking about self-care in the previous episode, and I think for myself, it's paramount. It's not selfish at all. It is paramount to living a good life. And for our listeners, I really think that we want to like remind each other, who are you living for right now? What is that voice in your head um, that is questioning yourself, and being more firm in your gut instinct, and knowing that what you're feeling right now is your truth, and like just learning to really trust that voice, so that you do actually have that like real connection with yourself, right?
And that is true freedom. That's how we set ourselves free. I think that is our real goal as humans, and especially as women. Walking our paths, they're all individual and unique, but to really unhook ourselves and really question what's really going on. What do I really want in my life? Who do I want in my life? I think it's very important. Um, Along those lines, it makes me curious.
Yeah.
What is something that you used to care a lot about in your 20s that you don't give a shit about now?
Ah, okay. So this is a great one for me, and it's just about boundaries that
Mm.
I just didn't have them. I think you have to sort of go through life to figure out what some of your boundaries are. But I was definitely a people person. And so I was constantly spreading myself too thin, partly to please people, but also to be social, a little fear of missing out. And girl, I do not care now. I am so content to be in my pajamas at 7:30 at night on a Saturday night, watching my Netflix binge with my bowl of popcorn, and my family around me. Like that is my happy place. And my old self would have felt like this outer calling to need to be places and doing things. And I just feel so firm in my belief that where I am is where I need to be. And then that also really spills over in my day to day, calls. Do I want to take this client at this time? Wait, I made a deal to myself. I'm not working on Fridays, right? How do I schedule calls in a way that like really suits me? So in my business and in my personal life, setting these boundaries around myself has given me such freedom. And I just look back, especially on my young self in my 20s, that was just like trying to be social with everyone, not wanting to hurt anyone's feelings, and making crazy social plans because of that. And the same thing in my work life, just like, sure, okay, I'll do it, oh, okay, I'll do anything. And just like being trying to be everything for everyone all the time.
Well, I'm reminded too. I'm thinking about you home on a Saturday night, and with your messy bun, and just doing whatever you in your jammies, and how you and I used to go out clubbing together on Saturday nights with a gaggle of girls. We would
Yes,
just
we
go
did.
and rock it. So sexy, so playful, so fun,
Yes.
and just so there was like this freedom that opened up among us in this group, and seeing each other, and then to still know you at this state, at this other stage, right, where in some ways you feel more vibrant and alive now than even
Mm-hmm.
then,
I think
right?
so. Thank you for saying it. I feel that way. I think I was just like not comfortable in my own skin. And I was trying to be that way. I mean, I loved our dance nights. Those were fabulous. I never want to take away our dance nights at San Francisco nightclubs,
Oh
like
my gosh.
vibing out and having so much fun with each other. But yeah, I think what I was seeking, what I was looking for in all of these interactions was something that no one else could give me.
Right.
I had to give that to myself. And I
Yes.
am finally giving that to myself um, in a way that feels very healing and like very, very nurturing. But I will never regret those clubbing days either.
And
Those were
thank
too
the
fun.
Lord, thank goodness we have photos. I mean, and
Yes.
each other, like, do you remember that thing? And you know I think that there's something about that, about being witness at all these different stages of life. And of
Mhm.
course, this will also be another topic that we tackle about
Yeah.
friendships, right, and how
Yes.
they shift and change over time. And when you find one that's as true as ours, one that is
Mm.
able to withstand the changes
Mhm.
the and the changing allegiances, I think is the right word I want to say,
Yeah.
because we used to have this allegiance to other, and now we're saying, no, my allegiance first is to myself. And
Yes.
then, of course, to my family. And then
Mhm.
there are these outer rings. It's so much more intentional. Or if it's not there yet for our listener, it's coming,
Yeah.
because now you have the awareness, and now the seed has been planted
Yeah.
that you can do that. And it's totally normal. And it feels amazing.
And I will say that the pandemic, and for all of its awfulness and its sickness and its illness and the heartbreak that it caused people, and in our own family we had some real hard things happen, but the gift of it was that slowing down, was recognizing who matters, what matters. I think it really was an opportunity for us all to get clear. I think a lot of us did, you know I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was certainly a mixed bag. So by no means am I trying to say like, oh, look at it this way. But that same idea, I think, really helped catapult that. And that could be an interesting topic too, is the pandemic for girlfriends of a certain age and how it impacted people. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that really
It's
was
true.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, as we're winding down a little bit, I'm just wondering where people can learn more about you if they want to be closer to your energy field
Uh
and
huh.
be around you more. How can they learn more about you, Jessica?
Absolutely. Well, they can certainly visit me for vocal coaching for singers and public speakers at impactvocalcoaching.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at Impact Public Speaking and at Jessica Neighbor. You can visit me on YouTube. You can search my name and I'll pop up there. And you also can join my email list to get, my most current trainings and to communicate the most one-to-one with me. So we can put all those groovy things in the liner notes because I, really do take the time to look at everybody and try to respond to everyone who wants to connect with me in those different arenas.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And to our listener, I want to ask you, what aha moment did you have today listening to Jessica's story? What resonated with you? What do you want to push back a little bit on? What's your piece? What's your story? We'd love to hear it, because this is nothing without you, without our listeners, without our community, without the other gorgeous women traveling this path and this journey alongside of us, even though you may not feel it yet. Oh, you're about to. You're about to feel it. So let us know where that is for you, because because we're all in this together. We're all connected. You know, your heart is connected to mine and connected to Jessica's. And we are sending our love and intentions to you for this beautiful community that we're all co creating.
Mm-hmm.
And if you'd like to follow the girlfriends of a certain age, me and Jessica, you are welcome to join our email list. The notes for that are in the liner notes below. You can find us on Instagram and on YouTube. So, with that, Jessica, I want to thank you for your honesty, for your heart, for your playful inner 8-year-old who came out today and let her freak flag fly.
Woo!
Because all of you is welcome here. All of everybody is welcome here. That this is a place for that. It's a safe place for that. And you and I will see to it that it stays a safe place for that. And I want to thank you for sharing so honestly and openly with us.
Mm.
And till next time, ladies, I want to encourage you to keep it real.
Thanks so much, Felicia. And thank you guys for hanging out with us and learning a little more about me today. All the best.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in today to Girlfriends of a Certain Age podcast.
Do you have a girlfriend who needs to hear this message? Share this episode with her. She will love you forever.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and comment wherever you get your podcasts.
Stay tuned for more episodes where we discuss more hot topics about girlfriends living their best lives. You can follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and girlfriendsofacertainage.com.